Peace, family. I'm having a very surreal day today, a very weird kind of like living experience. Ever since this morning, I hopped in the Uber, and not necessarily on the way there. On the way there, he did let me know that he's from Georgia. He did tell me a little bit about himself, but you know what it's like when you're in an Uber and it's not a long ride, it's a pretty short ride. I got my kid with me. He's listening to his music. So it's not really until the way home that I really kind of process it all. And I ask him how long has he been in the States, and I'm expecting this guy to say like he's from Georgia. I'm expecting him to say that he's been in the States for like since the beginning of the Georgian war with Russia. Basically, that's like almost a decade ago. It's been going on for a long time. He's only been in the USA for a year, which means that things have worsened and intensified to the point where he had to get the fuck out of his home country to find another place to go. And now homie's driving Uber, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's a lot of people driving Uber. But it was just a very sobering reality, a very sobering experience that I'm literally just dropping off my kid. This is basically my job for the day until he gets home and I gotta figure out what he's gonna eat. And anything outside of that, I'm just creating art. I'm just making audiobooks, making books, editing stuff, making content and videos. Like pretty much like very useless, very like privileged, activities and tasks that most people don't even ever get the capacity to do. Even if they did live in the United States their entire life, they may never have the privilege of doing what I do on a daily basis or living how I live at all, let alone someone who is forced into this situation. They can't see their family, they can't see their parents, they can't see their loved ones. They're in a completely different country where they don't really speak the language. People may or may not have any understanding of what's going on, but people also may not have any empathy for what he's going through. And, it was just a really kind of like, I felt godsmacked. I felt like just so out of my body. I didn't even really know what to say to this guy. What I did basically say is that you've given me a completely different perspective of life because I'm complaining so much about what's happened to my people in American soil, and it's very important to me to get reparations for that. It's very important to me to get justice and recognition and acknowledgement for that, and to have people properly educated about that. But in 2024, a lot of this stuff is up to you individually as an American citizen at this point in time. While you may have some random person harass you or make fun of you on the basis of your skin color, it is almost completely fucking uncalled for, depending on what location of the country you're living in. Where I'm living in, it's completely fucking uncalled for someone to come at you on the basis of that. They might insult you on the basis of their preconceived notions of other people like you, but you're not going through a blood-filled war anymore. You can have a lot of complaints and a lot of issues about how America conducts itself overseas. But as far as domestic terrorism is concerned, as far as having to deal with having my home bombed or having my home raided by soldiers, having my neighborhood burned down, and I just have to watch. I've never had to endure something like that before in my life, even though that is something that other black people, other African Americans have had to deal with in American soil. That is not something that right now I am currently enduring or going through in my personal lifetime. And it was just a very sobering reality, especially mentioning the town. Like, we're driving through the town that I grew up in. So it's like, I'm not just complaining from a position of privilege. I'm complaining from a position of privilege that most Americans don't even get to endure. I'm complaining about a level of privilege that most people on the planet don't get to endure. And I'm speaking out as if I'm going through some hardship or if I'm going through some personal pain because I'm directly or indirectly related to crimes against humanity committed against my ancestors before I was born or during my time on earth. I do have a lot of family members that have had senseless deaths. I have family members that have died from curable diseases. I've had family members that have served in the military. I haven't had my family displaced because of war. I've never been in a situation. I mean, I have been in situations where I couldn't see my parents like readily, but I've never been in a situation where I don't know the next time that I'm going to be able to talk to my parents or if my parents are going to be okay. I've never been stuck in a different country trying to rebuild my life, not knowing if everyone that I love and everyone that I care about is okay and having to deal with that. Just hearing XXXTentacion's father yesterday talk about some days I don't think about my son. He said, like, some days I wake up and my son is not the first thing and the last thing on my mind because his son died at a very, very young age, and it's like trying to live through that trauma and trying to live through that pain of what could have been with your own child and he died. I wouldn't say necessarily in a way that could have been definitely prevented, but in a very fucked up, savage type of way. I could not imagine my entire country being embroiled in war like Ukraine or Israel or Gaza, and then my death is politicized. The death of my loved ones is politicized. And that does happen in America. You do have black people die in America, and it is politicized. It is brushed under the rug. But I just have a completely different perspective and a sense of just surrealism, as well as I guess I would say a gratitude for the life that I have as a black man in America, is that I am a black man in America, and I've overcome a heritage that would have destroyed most people, absolutely. But in the modern era and modern day, I'm privileged beyond belief in so many ways as an African American man because of my heritage and because of the sacrifice that other people have made for me that I do not have to endure, and I don't have to fight for my rights or fight for my freedom or fight for my humanity anymore. I'm in a position where I'm very much an able-bodied citizen, and if I do want to see the world improve, me complaining about it isn't going to make it better. I had a very sobering reality yesterday during Easter, is that for the past 5 or so years, I've completely destroyed my public image. I've completely destroyed my brand and my reputation because I've been speaking out on a lot of the issues that I find within USA, American culture, and with the elitism as an artist, as an independent artist. The reasons as to why I did not become traditionally published, the reasons why I did not join mainstream media, and I chose a very painful, arduous pathway. It kind of is pales in comparison to my homeland is currently in war, a war that we can never hope to win, and it is only through the mercy of our enemies that we may ever see salvation, which it's Russia, and it's probably not going to happen. I just have a completely different appreciation for my life, a completely different appreciation for not so much the history of America, but the present reality of what we have to work with and where we can go from here is that many of us can indeed find peaceful solutions to the issues that we face within this country. We can move to a more liberal, progressive part of the country, or we can live to a part of the country where there's only black people. I have different options as to how I can live my life and motivate myself and to get through this situation. And if I did not have this discussion today with this young man and the brotherhood that we developed in this short amount of time, I don't think I would have had this kind of mentality unless I met this young man. If yesterday was an Easter and I wasn't focused on the death and sacrifice of Yeshua HaMashiach, Jesus the Christ, the God on earth, and if I wasn't met today immediately after that by this Georgian man just trying to live his life, just trying to do his thing, and just trying to keep himself together, The way that he apologized, like, I'm sorry that I don't speak your language. I'm like, dude, I wish I could speak your language. I wish that I could talk more than one language. It's amazing that you even know English because of the pain and the ridicule and the things that he's had to endure since coming to this country. I don't know. I'm just in a completely different headspace today than I've ever been in before in my lifetime. I just have a completely different perspective of life right now. And I'm usually grateful for life. I'm usually grateful for everything in my life, but I usually use that as a way to cope with depression, a way to cope with my anger and my rage towards how my country is ran. But today, the gratitude that I feel is a peace and a stillness and an optimism that out of every country that this man could have gone through to find refuge, he came to my country. He came here to America, which lets me know that there's a lot of potential for good in America. There's a lot of potential to do the right thing in this country. There's a lot of potential to solve our problems and to fix things in America. But if we're going to fixate upon what's wrong, if we're going to fixate upon the issues, the metaphor that I used yesterday, the example I used yesterday, is that if you're in a room of children and kids, of babies and children playing, and you're in a room full of all these like playing babies and children, and there's broken glass all over the floor, is you screaming about the broken glass everywhere? That's not helping anybody. You screaming and yelling and bringing attention to the broken glass, where otherwise the baby and children were already avoiding it or weren't even aware of it to begin with because they're completely different. You bring all the attention to this broken glass. There's an entire room. You bring all this attention to this broken glass, but you don't clean up the glass. You don't get anybody else to help clean up the glass. All you're going to do is scare the children and anger the adults. If you're sitting here screaming about the Hollywood elite, I remember my mom saying this to me when I first got back to New Jersey. It's like, the stuff that you're talking about is great and good, but what are we going to do in the meantime? Like, even if you are, like, let's say I do believe you, let's say that you are 100% correct, practically, what are you going to actually do? And if the answer is nothing, how can you really be upset that people aren't supporting you or dropping everything to change the entire world when there is no method in place for world change to begin? There is no ideal or vision of what this better world is going to be. There's nothing to replace the beast system with. There's nothing there. So instead of bringing all my time and attention to screaming about broken glass, instead of bringing all my time and attention to focus on the problems, because the advice I've been given rather recently before all this was to stop focusing so much on the negative, stop watching a lot of the negative content, stop watching a lot of the conspiracy theories, not because they're not true, but just because they have a negative effect on your brain there's nothing to replace that negativity. All it can do is make you senile. All it can do is make you crazy. All it can do is isolate you from other people. But if you're going to fixate upon a problem that everyone is aware of, and all you're going to do is fixate and talk about this, if you're dealing with a morbidly obese person and all you're going to do is talk to them about how fat they are, but you don't exercise, you don't eat healthy, you've never been fat before, you know nothing that this person is going through, you haven't even tried to take the steps necessary to fix this person's problem, how do they rely upon you? How does the person trust you? Because it's beyond just a sense of, oh my God, the world is so horrible. Yeah, it really is, though. The world really is a horrible place. The world really is a cruel, unloving environment. It really is like that. There really are a lot of horrible things that have happened in the past. There really genuinely are a lot of crimes against humanity that were committed across the globe, absolutely. But what is the dedication to making a better world, and where does that begin? Where does that end? When do we stop focusing so much upon the problems and focusing so much upon the things that we do not like in the world? And when do we start actively making these things better? Because I've spent about 5 to 10 years now thinking that if I just told people about what was wrong, then that's going to save all of humanity and the world's going to be a better place. And it hasn't happened yet, because that's not me bringing your attention to the broken glass in the room is not the same as me cleaning up the broken glass so that it doesn't have to be there anymore. And we genuinely need people to have this mentality in which we're willing to clean up the problems in society. We're willing to address the problems in society and combat these problems in society rather than just bringing attention to them for people to profit or become more comfortable with the problem. You know, it's like we're bringing attention to something that either people are not aware of, and these people can now focus on the good that they're doing in front of their lives, versus bringing in this hyper negative perspective, this very cynical reality. And now any hope and optimism of fixing the problem is gone because now people are completely demoralized by how bad the problem or how bad the situation is. It was a very sobering reality. It was a very strange experience to kind of go through these past few days because it's not my usual shtick. It's not my usual bullshit. It's not my usual content of white people are evil and bad. And I was like, okay, so the things that white people did were horrible. How do you want them to behave now? That's a better usage of your time. And it's the type of thing is like if you're arguing, it feels good to argue sometimes. It feels good to be yelling and shouting and screaming and feeling like you're getting your point across and feeling like you're demoralizing this person and feeling like, but it does not feel good the same way when that's happening to you. It does not when the shoe is on the other foot and someone's yelling at you about what you did wrong, someone's cursing you out about what you did wrong, someone's bringing all your issues and your shortcomings to your face. I'm pretty sure that you wish that they used a little bit more tact and they used a little bit more sugar rather than salt in dealing with you. I'm pretty sure when someone's addressing your shortcomings and addressing your issues and addressing the problems that they find in your life, you wish that they would use a little empathy and a little sympathy and they would use a kind, loving hand with you. That's something that you're going to have to do then across the board with everybody. I know it's a very horrible, painful thing that we've had to deal with, everything that we've had to deal with on planet Earth. It's a very horrific thing that we have the history that we do as humans and that we treat each other as horrible as we do as humans. But if you're not going to take the steps to treat people better, if you're not going to take the steps necessary to lead that charge of living a different lifestyle outside of this bullshit, then nothing else is going to exist but the problems that you see in society. Nothing is going to exist, not just the problems you see in society, but all the negative emotions that come with your perspective of society as well. And that's going to turn into a very isolated, ostracized human experience because while all these other people are trying to make the most out of life, all these other people are taking the issues in society and they're just trying to live the best life that they can despite these issues in society. You're going to stop your entire life out of protest, out of a problem that you can't hope to solve. A problem that is far greater than you, that has existed before you were born, that existed before your parents were born, that existed before your grandparents were born, and you're going to stop it in your generation by not talking to anybody, by not having any healthy relationships, by everyone thinking that you're crazy, by not having any normal relationships with people. That's impossible. And it's kind of like this very strange juggling act that you have to do in which you have to clean up the broken glass for these kids, but you also have to do it with a type of patience and a type of love of dealing with children that while you're cleaning this glass, you're not just screaming at them and yelling at them to avoid the glass because you're just going to make them your enemy in the process. You have a lot of people trying to demean white people into change. You have a lot of people trying to shame black people into change. You have a lot of people trying to take a very, including myself, trying to take a very abrasive, a very ostracizing, a very just unuseful method of trying to change society because you would rather focus on all the problems in the world than to simply be grateful for what you have. And again, I'm going to end this with this perspective. Usually when I say that I'm grateful for my life and I'm grateful for everything in it, I'm usually saying that to kind of pad my personality and to pad myself from a lot of the negative emotions that I would be feeling otherwise. But I genuinely mean within this, we need to have a genuine sense of gratitude for what we have right now Because if we don't have any sense of contentment or any sense of gratitude or any sense of recognition for the progress that has been made already, we can't make any more progress. We can't go any more in the future because we are not ascertaining what is working versus what is not working. Where have we made progress versus where we have not made progress? Because if the entire time, no matter what happens, no matter how many people are trying to do the right thing, we're just going to think that every white person is evil, every black person is fucking lazy and a criminal. If we're just going to have these completely unhelpful perspectives of reality, despite reality being as equally amazing as it is horrific, as equally painful as it is pleasurable, we're not going to be able to maximize and optimize the good in the world because we are so fixated on seeing the evil and seeing the pain and isolating ourselves from other people trying to do the right thing because they did not do things the way that we would have approved or the way that we would have wanted or some kind of bullshit like that. It was hard to very much see why I was not making the progress I wanted, why I was not doing what I wanted, why I was not achieving what I wanted to achieve, but having the perspective of there being broken glass all over the room and there being children that that have no concept of what glass is. Babies that don't have the ability to clean it up themselves. Maybe you can get a 5-year-old or 7-year-old to get a hand vacuum or get a broom and a dustpan and to help you clean up the glass and whatnot. But it still takes a certain level of mentality. It takes a certain level of mindset to teach the children how to clean up after themselves, to teach the children how to preemptively clean up the mess, or to teach the children anything at all. Because when you give people cortisol, when you stress people out, they don't have the capacity to learn anymore. If you strike someone with stress and cortisol, all they can really do is fight you or run away from you. They have to challenge your beliefs and challenge what you're saying because you're choosing such a controversial, such an abrasive standpoint to deliver your message that comes with yelling and screaming and shame and stress. You're just basically stressing people out. You're not putting them in a position where they can learn and they can gain from the perspective and then they can change themselves, therefore changing the entire world. We don't need the world to change. The world is great. We need humanity to change. We need people to change. We need these anti-human, these misanthropic belief systems to change. We need the idea that people need to starve or suffer in order to make a living. We need a lot of these anti-human beliefs and mindsets to go away, but we can't do that if we're simultaneously enforcing the anti-human agenda, if we're enforcing the misanthropic agenda, if we don't have any friends, if we don't get along with our family members, if we can't get along with our neighbors, if we can't do for our community, we're not going to be able to help the world. So a lot of us are living in fucked up neighborhoods. We're not living in a fucked up planet. We're living in a fucked up state. We're not living in a fucked up country. We have states that are fucked up. We have towns inside of those states that are fucked up and need help. Not every single person living in the planet is a fucked up human being who either doesn't deserve air because they hate people or doesn't deserve air because they are people. We need to begin seeing the good inside of other people. We need to begin being grateful for what we do have in life. We need to be able to see the miracles and blessings in everyday life, because if not, you don't have a world that you have any interest in changing. You start to believe that the world is so horrible and it's so beyond repair. It's so beyond your scope and capability because your perspective of the situation has gotten so negative. There is no hope for change. The problems that you see become so great, and they've been existing for so long. In my case, a lot of these issues have been existing for tens of thousands of years of human history, and no one has tried to fix it, and that's not the crime. No, people have tried to fix it. People have tried to fix it the wrong way. People have tried to fix it. People are trying to make the world better. People are trying to improve the planet. People are trying to give each other a better life. People are trying to be the best people that they possibly can. Some people are pieces of shit, and that's the best they can be. You need to help them see a completely different, because everyone around them is a piece of shit. Everyone around them is an asshole. Everyone around them has given up on life. We need a brand new culture. We need a brand new way of seeing reality and seeing our lives so that we're empowered to take the steps necessary to fix our own individual life, not to feel so crushed and to feel so oppressed and to feel like the battle is already lost, that we're just waiting to die.